Welcome to another segment of the BYU Management Society's Learn from Professionals initiative. Our goal is to provide guidance to young adults who are either exploring various careers or are ready to jumpstart a career. Today, we have an opportunity to learn from a seasoned entrepreneur and business owner, Anita Hummel. Anita, welcome.
Thank you.
So Anita is an entrepreneur and a owner of Mondoro Company Limited, a leading Asian design and product development company. She is also a blogger and podcaster. She has 35 years of experience living and working in China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and Vietnam. As the president and owner of Mondoro Company Limited, she leads a product development and design company with offices in China, Hong Kong, and Vietnam. The company has 7 regional employees and a small UL lighting factory. Mondoro designs, develops, and manufactures home and furnishing products for medium to high-end wholesalers and retailers in the United States. Mondoro works with many small businesses throughout Asia, including handicraft villages. So Anita has a Bachelor of Science from Brigham University in International Relations. She studied Anthropology at BYU. She has a Master's from Open University of Hong Kong in Chinese Law. She has a Master's in Strategic Planning from Edinburgh Business School, and she's a doctoral candidate in Business Administration and Strategic Planning. Anita is an active member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She founded a small charity, Project Spouts, that helps underprivileged school children in Asia. She is a self-taught artist and passionate about learning. Anita is an avid traveler, biker, swimmer, and just plain old adventurer who never passes up a good adventure. Anita also serves on the BYU Management Society's Global Steering Committee for Asia. So Anita, it's so nice to have you with us, and we appreciate your willingness to share your expert advice with our viewers. So,
thank you, Scott. I think you could have cut that. I think you could have cut that introduction probably in half and just said, "Here's Anita." That would have been just fine.
Here's Anita. Okay. So, Anita, what brought you to Asia to live and work?
Well, really, what brought me there was years ago. Was my interest in Asia came from my family. My grandfather lived here. My uncle lived here. I always tell people I'm the 4th generation of my family to lived in China. So it was sort of, I would say it was a family background or a family connection that brought me there many years ago. And like many things in life, I said, well, I'm just going to stay for 2 years. That's it. And here I am, still here.
Okay. That's great. Well, as an American citizen, what is it like to live in Vietnam?
You know, it's, of course, being an expat, that's what they call us as expatriates. You know, it's got its challenges. You know, there's always challenges because, in some ways it's hard to do things that you would do in your own country. You miss out on family things. For example, my niece is getting married this weekend in Salt Lake City. I'm not able to travel there. So you do miss out on things being an expat, but you also gain things too. So it's like anything in life. You gain experiences. You gain family overseas that isn't quite your family, but they become your family. You gain your relationships that can be lifelong. Just because you're sharing an experience with someone that's unique. You get to meet people from all different cultures and places. you have adventures that probably other people don't have and experiences. So I guess it's a trade-off between what's it like living in your own country versus being an expat. There's a trade-off. Some people can handle it and some people can't.
Mm-hmm. So, Anita, can you tell us what made you decide to pursue a career as an entrepreneur and a business owner?
I always say to people, in fact, I once gave a talk at the BYU Management Society in Korea, and it was entitled, "If your only goal in life is money, then marry money. It's much easier." And I sort of believe that, doing your own business is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. It's
Right.
anyone who's done their own business will tell you, they've been humbled so many times over. It's the most difficult thing they've ever done. By the time you're successful in business, there is absolutely no pride left. And I think entrepreneurship is sort of set up that way. Because if you're cocky and you're successful, you're never learning.
Mm-hmm.
If you're humble and you're successful, then you're always learning. And today in this world of AI, business is always changing. I was talking to the BYU Management Society team in Singapore this last week, and they were saying how the Singapore government has now increased the when people can retire, the age they can retire. And they were saying, but at the same time, jobs are changing so fast. So you've got people in their 50s that are now saying, what am I going to be able to do until my retirement age? Because my job's changing. And that's the world that we live in these days, is it's a constant changing. So I guess you asked me, what does it mean to be an entrepreneur? I think it's the same thing as being anyone in business, in the sense that if you are not constantly learning, and if you don't think that an old dog can learn new tricks, then you're already in trouble.
Mm-hmm. And I imagine as an entrepreneur and a business owner, one of the perks is just working half days, right?
Yeah, I wish that was true. Yeah, and lying on the beach and doing whatever you want to do, and never having to work a weekend or an evening, or never having to get up early. Yes, that is the greatest fallacy. Yes. When people tell me I want to be an entrepreneur so I can lie on the beach, and I'm like, honey, you're in the wrong profession. If you want to lie on the beach, become a sailing instructor.
So when I said half days, I meant 12-hour days.
Yes, or longer, or you have to work on the weekends, and you have to be willing to give it everything you've got.
I know.
I mean, I'm a great believer in entrepreneurship, and you know this, Scott, because you do some of this yourself. So you're smiling there. I can tell you understand. Everyone, so many people think like, I want to be an entrepreneur. Oh, I'll have my freedom. Yes, you have your freedom, but what kind of freedom do you have? If you're not there every day, it's, we start work here in Vietnam at 8 a.m. And I think, yeah, it'd be nice for me to start at 9 or 10. There's other things I could do in the morning. But if I'm not there at 8 a.m., no one else is going to show up either.
Mm-hmm.
People only show up if you show up. And this thing where people think that they can be an entrepreneur and they can work half days, or they can go on these extensive holidays, or they can lie on the beach, is a fallacy. It is one of those fallacies that's been sold by people who probably aren't doing it. I have a very good friend who they run a lot of big companies around the world, and his father's in his 80 or something, or 90 now, and these are people that are literally employing millions of people in car and auto parts. And he's always working. He's working every Saturday. And he said, my dad's going to die at his desk. So, anyone that thinks that an entrepreneur is going to give you this freedom you've never had, the truth is that you'll probably have more freedom by working for somebody than you will by doing your own business.
I agree. So, Anita, can you tell us more about your work as a blogger and a podcaster? I think that's really cool.
Well, that's another insane thing that I did, where I talk about you need to be ever learning. I started doing podcasting because we do some websites. We have several websites that we started doing, and part of it I did it because I really love to learn. I'm passionate about learning. So for my own company, Mondoro, we have a blog called Global Trade Gal where we talk about different things to do about trade. And we, of course, do blogs because in today's world of anyone that understands anything about the internet knows that internet is all about how people find you. In order to get on the internet, you have to be found. There's several ways that you can do that. Of course, you can maybe do a crazy TikTok thing and everybody looks at you on TikTok doing a funny dance. And, then you go viral and then everybody finds you. Well, I don't dance and I'm not on TikTok. So, that's probably the first problem. So blogging is one way that helps us to be able to get, views into our website. And also I love to talk, so it's relatively easy for me to talk into a microphone. For the podcast and blogging, it gives us an opportunity to be able to write about our company, write about things, write about products, write about other things. So it's a way to communicate. It's not for everybody. I understand it's not everyone's cup of tea. Not everybody, if we can say tea, in the church. Sorry, I just so if not for everyone's, cup of tea, so to speak, right? Where not everybody wants to, likes to speak in a microphone or likes to write content. But for us, it seems to be something that works for us. And I've sort of taken my blogs where I do things where I've enjoyed or things I wanted to learn. So for me, it's really a learning process among it. And it's been great. I kind of got into it. I can go back and kind of tell you the story because this will tell people that, you can teach an old dog new tricks. That's what I always say is you can always be learning. People out there think I can't do this. I'm not able to do this. Well, the truth is that you can. Years ago, I wanted to do my webpage. And I hired somebody to do my webpage. Somebody who was this young kid, a technical guy. And for some reason, in the middle of the project, he just walked out and decided he wanted to go home and play video games. Fine, can't say anything about that. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But I thought, what am I going to do? I've got this webpage that's half done. And it happened to be the summertime, which was our slower season. So I kind of said to my staff, I said, you know what? I am so tired of these people trying to do my webpage. I'm going to learn it myself. And they kind of look at me like, you are? And I said, yes, I am. I'm going to learn it myself. How hard can it be? Let's get on YouTube and let's figure it out. And we did. And within a month or two, and now I'm a pretty good webpage designer. I've learned all about webpage. I've been able to keep up with it. But and I think for me, it's one of the greatest blessings that I did because number one, I don't depend upon anyone else to do my website for me. And number two is I can really communicate myself what I want for design. So I really believe that you can learn things on your own.
So
was
I
that
think
too much information, Scott? Was that too much information,
No,
Scott?
that's great. No, that's great. I can tell you that I am living proof that you can teach an old dog new tricks. It's just that old dog has to write down step by step.
But what I say to people today is, what I say, there's a really good book that I read years ago called Thomas Friedman's book, Thank You for Being Late. But one of the things I got out of that book is he said, when I see people in Washington, D.C. on the subway with their phones playing video games, I want to say to them, don't you understand how competitive this world is? Why aren't you learning something? And that really stuck with me. I read that book probably about 6 years ago or something like that. And that really stuck with me because our world is changing so fast. And anybody can learn anything on YouTube. I taught myself to paint on YouTube. I broke my ankle and I was stuck home for Christmas. And I said to my staff, get me some canvas, get me some paint, and I'm going to try to paint. And again, they kind of look at me like, okay, here goes one of her things. I said, no, we've got this holiday. My ankle's broken. I can't go anywhere. And by the way, I broke it in a motorcycle accident, which is a whole other story, and ended up with 7 screws and a plate in my leg. But, and so it's kind of like I went on YouTube and I started to learn to paint. You can be anywhere in the world these days and you can learn anything on YouTube.
Yes. So Anita, tell us about your career path and what's helped you to become so successful in business.
Well, I think anyone who's an entrepreneur always says successful. What does that mean? I mean, I think that's a hard word, right? And when you start saying things like seasoned, successful, I think anyone who's an entrepreneur, that's probably a hard word sometimes to take. Um, I think that I think a lot of it is just gumption and gut and maybe the stupidity of not quitting. I think
Hmm.
there's something to be said about the entrepreneurship is tough. Most people get in it and they quit. It's hard. It's by far one of the hardest things you'll ever do. Anyone that tells you differently, I will tell you right now, is not telling you the truth about it, because it's hard.
Hmm.
But at the same time, you have to have a bit of staying power, and at the same time of staying power, you have to be constantly wanting to learn, to change, and to evolve. And so, it's a combination of a lot of things. I think being willing to evolve, to change, to learn. I think it's the staying power. I think it's the not giving up. Does that answer your question, or did that not answer your
Hmm.
question?
So to sum it up, the harder you work, the luckier you get, right?
Yeah, but I think it's not even just working hard. You have to work smart. You have to,
Sure.
I mean, a lot of people obviously work hard. You go to Asia and other places, you see people out in the street, carrying trees and sweeping streets. That's hard work. It doesn't mean that, that doesn't mean that necessarily, they're becoming suddenly, the life's becoming better. It's not a matter of that. It's a matter of understanding opportunities. It's a matter of taking opportunities. It's a matter of really not getting discouraged. I mean, you will find, especially in a place like the United States. I was saying to one of my customers the other day, you know, they're at the top of what I call, if I could excuse my word, the crap pile. Where people in America, the consumers in America, are extremely picky these days. They want everything to be perfect. And if it's not perfect, or it doesn't fit in their house, or, oh, I didn't really like this lamp, they will think nothing about returning it to the store for no reason at all. Doesn't have to be a quality issue. It can just be like the color isn't right. Right.
Hmm.
Well, and then you, as the bottom of the manufacturer, you get everything trickles down, it trickles down to you as a manufacturer. So yes, it can be hard, because I think that part of it's gotten harder and harder. Does
So,
that make
Anita,
sense or not?
it does. It does. I totally understand. I look at all the things that come into our front door that are delivered by Amazon, and I think
Right.
about all the things that are returned. So,
Right. And
Anita,
and so then, and then maybe, somebody complains about something, and it's the manufacturer that, you get onto it. And so, I think, customers, the internet has done a lot of great things with the world. Internet's allowed you and I to talk today on Zoom,
mhm.
right? But the internet's also, it has made the consumers more aware. It has increased the competition, where, your competition is no longer your little community. Your competition can be the world.
Anita, what is the best career advice someone's offered to you?
Hmm. Trying to think. What's the best career advice I've heard? Um, Probably one of the best advice I ever got was from a friend of mine who, I was moving, I was starting my career, and I was moving from Thailand to Hong Kong. And when I was in Hong Kong, I'd been sort of used to a certain standard of living, and I thought I kind of deserved that standard of living, even though I was starting out in my business, that I deserve that because I am who I am, right? I should be in the top area where all the expats are, because that is where I should be. I deserve that. I deserve that. And he said to me, nope, you don't. You don't. And let's go find you the cheapest apartment we can find, because that's what you need. And that was probably the best advice I ever got from somebody. And I actually went out and found this apartment in this area where there weren't that many expats, and it ended up being one of the greatest experiences in Hong Kong, and ended up being a great place to live. But it wasn't in the area that I first expected. So I think it's the willingness to sacrifice and the willingness to maybe go without when you need to for the purpose of something greater. I think that's the best advice. I think so many times we think that we deserve this. We deserve to have the big house. We deserve to have the nice car. We deserve that. And really, do you? Do you deserve to eat in the finest restaurants? Or maybe McDonald's is okay sometimes, So I think it's that. I think that was probably that attitude of no, maybe you don't deserve it. Was probably some of the best advice I heard as an entrepreneur. That instead, save your beans, save your money, save your things, and that's going to be more important in the long run.
So Anita, has your career been on a continual upward path, or have there been times that you've had to overcome significant obstacles?
Wow. Let's talk about 2008 housing crisis. One of the things I was thinking about before this interview, as I was saying, what are some of the challenges? And import and export has just gotten harder and harder and harder. Regulations, government regulations, crazy regulations, taxes. In my career, I have been through, major anti-dumping with China, which totally killed my business for furniture and bedroom. I've been through 2008, the housing crisis, which totally killed my business, and where several of my major customers didn't make it through. I have been through, heaps and heaps and heaps of regulations where suddenly now something we're producing, we have to totally re-engineer and change because it has to meet a US regulation. I have been through, Trump tariffs. Again, which totally killed the business, 25% on everything coming out of China. I have, been through all of these things in just for my business and my career. No, it is never an upward spiral. It is more like a zigzag, with highs and lows.
So what did you learn from that?
Oh, gee, what did I learn? Probably I learned something about myself, that I've got a sense of stupidity about me, that I just keep going, maybe if I can be so blunt about that. And then I've learned that you got to find ways to solve problems. You're always going to have problems. I remember once talking to somebody who was in the same industry as mine or similar industry as mine, and he said, well, there's problems every day. And I'm like, yes, every single day, especially in manufacturing, there is a problem. You are going to constantly get emails. And, if you take it to heart and you cry about it every day, you're not going to be able to get anywhere. You've got to instead have this attitude, okay, how do we solve this problem? What are we going to do to make this better? What are we going to do to make sure this doesn't happen again? Part of it with my company, we have some core values. One of our core values is zero complaints. Now, I know complaints will happen, but I always say to my staff, when I talk about zero complaints, I talk about zero stupid complaints. Like, for example, it was supposed to be red, but you made it green. That to me is a stupid complaint. Why did you make it green instead of red? But other complaints that are going to always happen are those are complaints we can solve. I think it's a matter of being a problem solver, because no matter what you do and whatever business you do, there are going to be problems, and there'll be heaps of them. And sometimes they'll come on you by the truckload. Solve them one by one. Are you laughing because is that you understand that or not?
I think about my day every day. It's a problem solver. That's what it is. So,
it's a problem solver, right? And if you're not a problem solver, what do you do, right? Like everybody thinks it's so easy, but you have to be able to solve problems, right?
Yeah, it's job security, right? So,
Yeah,
so Anita,
exactly.
your bio indicates that you embrace a lifetime of learning. I mean, you've got a Bachelor of Science, you've got 2 masters, you're a doctoral candidate. So can you tell us how this mantra has impacted your life?
You know, I think first of all, number one, if you're always learning, it makes you interesting. It makes you an interesting person. One of the reasons I started blogging, and before my mother passed away, she'd always say, I love talking to you because every day you're telling me something new. And in fact, yesterday I wrote a blog about, funny enough, about, it was for my art blog, and it was about something I wanted to write about Hawaiian shirts. Now, it's such a random thing, right? To write about, but yet Hawaiian shirts is like an art that people are wearing in art. And I learned about the history of it and thought, well, this is so fascinating, so interesting. I need to tell somebody about what I learned. I think, to be learning, I think it makes you interesting to other people, number one. I think it
Hmm.
helps you to be able to bridge and be able to talk to other people because that's something interesting to say or you understand something about their lives. If somebody had on a Hawaiian shirt, I'd say like, wow, like I understand. You want to hear the history of your shirt. Maybe they don't want to, but I would be able to tell it to them. So I think that, always learning, first of all, number one, you learn these random things that nobody wants to hear about. But number two, it also helps make you a more interesting person. And three, in the end, it will help you in your business or your career or whatever you choose.
So, Anita, we've talked a lot about the challenges of being an entrepreneur and a business owner, but what do you believe are the most important rewards?
I think it becomes the people you work with. For me, one of the things that I love is I always say that I'm a creator. And in fact, I was talking to somebody about this who was going into engineering, and I said, the day I walked into a factory, my first job actually was I was sort of lucky in the sense that I went to Hong Kong, and I was sort of like I do a lot of things by the seat of the pants. I'm sort of like a little bit of Miss Creative who's kind of a little bit out there, okay? And a friend of mine said, somebody help me. And I actually sent out, I always say to people, my first job in Hong Kong, do you know how many letters I sent out to get a job? I sent out over 2,000 letters. I had
Wow.
1 month to find a job. Very difficult to get a job because not only did I have to get a working permit, but somebody had to be willing to sponsor me for the working permit, which was very, very difficult to do. So
Hmm.
I sent out over 2,000 letters. Do you know how many rejections I got? Probably 1,999. I had stacks of rejections. Every day I got a rejection. This is when they still had letters. Every day I got a rejection letter. I kept saying like I could wallpaper my room with my rejection letters. I had so many. But I got a job from this really sort of funny company who said, "Yeah, we'll hire you. Yeah, we'll get you a working permit." I'm like, "Great, great. Well, you know what? We make shoes." And I'm like, "Great. I don't know a shoe from a shoebox. I've never been in a factory, but you know what? You want me to manage your office? I will. I can't even balance my checkbook, but you know what? You want to take me? I'm a game for it." And so, and so, and then my boss kind of says to me after 2 weeks, like, "Yeah, we want to send you to Thailand to manage my office there." I'm like, "You know what? I've never done this, but I think I can handle it. Yeah, I think I can."
Yeah,
And so I think
you just
I think I've got a little bit off track here, but I was saying that I think that attitude of always being willing to learn and take on a challenge, but from the moment I walked into a factory and I saw them making shoes, and this is so fascinating. Here's the raw material, and here they're creating something, and here's an end product, and this is the whole creation process fascinated me. And that's one reason why I enjoy what I'm doing. I enjoy going in. For me as an entrepreneur, I love to go into a factory and say, huh, you're weaving this basket now, but what if we change this and do this
hmm.
instead? How is that going to work? That for me is a perk as an entrepreneur, that I get to do that on a daily basis.
So, Anita, your career, I think it's 35 years in Asia.
Wow.
What?
Am I that old? I started, by the way, anyone that's asking, I started when I was 3 years old. So just so you
Okay.
know, I started very young. I was a child prodigy. So I was only 3 when I started.
Okay. All right. All right. I like that. So you have a lot of experience in Asia, working in Asia. What do you consider the characteristics of the most successful business leaders in Asia?
Well, I think a successful leader in general needs to have a few things. I think Asia is no different. I think sometimes we like to say, like, we like to put people in boxes, Africa, Asia, whatever.
Hmm.
Asia, funny enough, does have a lot of women entrepreneurs, which is interesting. I work with a lot of women, strong women that are Asian. Um, and a lot of times they're together with their husband, but their husband happens to be the one that's smoking a cigarette and drinking, and the wife's doing the work. That happens quite a bit in Asia. Um, but I think a good leader has a couple things. I think one is first of all, and I put this at the top, you have to care about the people you work with. I've been very lucky in that most of my staff have been with me 10 plus years. I don't have turnover. And
Mm.
I don't have much turnover. And I think part of it is because we're like a family. They know I care about them. I care about their lives. I think a good leader cares about people. I think a good leader is willing to sacrifice for the people. I think it's very similar to being a good parent or being a good, in our church, a bishop, or being a good state president. I think a lot of the same qualities are there to be a good leader
Hmm.
in business.
I like
And
that.
it just so happens that in business you are, and I think to be a good human being, I think really, I think a good leader also puts people before money, people before cash. Yes, you're in business to make money, but if that's your only focus and your only thing, I'll go back to what I said before: marry money, because you know what, it's much easier. That will be a much
Hmm.
easier road to take. um, because first of all, you'll probably be happier because you'll be married to money, but the truth of the matter is that really, I think being a good human being is really where it's at. And to be a good leader is to be a good human being, to have the Christ-like qualities. We can learn so much through, and if I become a little religious here, I think we're talking mainly to an LDS audience, is look at Christ. Look at what Christ did for leadership and use those principles in your business. You will be a better business leader. And you will have people
So,
that will want to be with you.
Anita, can you tell us just quickly about Project Sprouts?
Yeah. So this was, years ago in China. I had an intern from BYU, and we decided to raise money for some local desk for a school. And the Project Sprouts came from this little kid that he used to call Sprout, that would jump up and down. And since then we raised the money for the school, for the desks in China. We actually went on a charity trip to Tibet, which is fascinating, with one of my managers, and we were 18 days in an army jeep that had no shocks and no door, kept flying open, and no seatbelts, which is a whole other story, which I could tell one day. And my staff kept thinking that I was going to fly out the door at the next corner and roll down the mountain, which I'm surprised I did. But Project Sprouts, mainly since that time, we have been based more in Vietnam. And we do a couple things. One is we raise money for winter coats and boots. A lot of kids here live up in the mountains. It can be 40 degrees, but yet they're walking to school 20, 30 kilometers a day in flip-flops. So we'll try to get them boots to help them. We'll get them some winter coats and some school supplies. And we also, my office, in fact, has become one of the drop-off points where we take things that people don't need anymore, old clothes and other things, and then we donate them up to people who need them. So
Mm-hmm.
those are kind of like the three things we do. It's very simple. I sort of started it because I wanted a way for my staff to be able to give back, for us as a company to give back, and for us to sort of be in the community.
Hmm.
So it's simple. It's a very simple thing. It's it's not a very big organization, but it's, at least we can say we've sort of left our mark and are trying to do something to make a difference for somebody.
Thank you. So, Anita, what advice can you offer to young adults that are interested in being successful in their occupation, but also want to have balance in their life? So I look at you and I think about balance because you're an avid traveler and you swim and you bike and you do a lot of fun things. And I know you are over in the U.S. oftentimes, taking care of your parents.
Right.
So
Right.
what about balance in life?
Well, I think you need to, first of all, you need to find balance and you decide what is your balance. I think that's the first one. I think anyone, if you've taken the Launch and Leaders program, one of the things they say is get up early. There's a lot you can do in the mornings, that you couldn't do other times throughout the day. I think that's great advice to be able to do that. I think you yourself, you need to find and decide what is your balance. I think one of your balance should always be family and church. I think family, church, and then of course work. For me, when I was working in my first job, I was working close to 70, 80-hour weeks. I had customers in all the time. Every single weekend I had customers in. But one of the things I said is, no matter what, I will go to church on Sunday. And thank goodness sacrament meeting was 8 a.m., which was early for a lot of people, but that was a great blessing for me because my customers weren't going to get up until, they weren't going to start till 9 or 10 on a Sunday. So it always gave me the opportunity to be able to go to church. I think you need to find your balance through your religion, through your God, through church, through the service. Those, you need to find your balance that way and decide that that's going to be part of your balance. And if you do that, then other things will come. I think the other thing is you got to love what you're doing. If you don't love what you're doing, you're not passionate about it, you're not going to be good about it. I see a lot of kids, especially in Asia, where their parents might say, you need to be an accountant. And they don't want to be an accountant. So they hate it. They dredge it. They don't want to do it. Or you're going to be a doctor, and they hate being a doctor. I want a doctor who's going to love being a doctor. I want an accountant who's going to love being an accountant. So I think that you've got to love what you're doing. I think money should be secondary. I think it should be, I love what I'm doing and I'm passionate about what I'm doing, and then the rest will come.
Anita, how important is networking to the success of your business? And can you give advice as to how to do that?
I'm kind of a funny networker in that, not funny, I guess, but I am a networker. I think to be a networker, you need to be somebody who is, first of all, a human being. If you go in and you network to somebody and say, not like, I want to meet you to get something from you. If anybody feels like you're just talking to them to get something from them, what do? They back away. Like, I'm backing away. But if you meet them and then you even if they don't buy from you, there's people that are friends of mine that don't buy from me, but I know their kids, and I'll say, hey, how's so-and-so doing? How are you doing? I think, first of all, to be a good networker, you must be a good human being. That must be first and foremost. That would be my advice. And not to get something out of somebody, because if it's going to work out, it's going to come. You also need to be doing other things like, of course, doing your marketing. In today's world, that is harder than ever. Social media, from what I see, is dying. People are getting tired of social media. There's a lot of unreal things on there. So I think you need to find ways. I think you need to be willing to make those phone calls, be willing to talk to people, but I think first and foremost, to be a good networker is to be a good human being. You talk to them. You talk to them because you want to talk to them. That comes back again where it's talking about learning, like about the Hawaiian shirts. Okay, like I'll give an example. if I was networking, somebody wanted to talk to somebody, and then they had on a Hawaiian shirt, I'd say, "Oh, I love your shirt," blah, 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 blah. And I'd start talking about the shirt before I start talking about my company. That's what I would do as a networker.
Mm-hmm. Anita,
well, I mean, is that the advice you would give? Is that the advice that you would give, Scott, or not?
I always give that advice, and I always talk about the most important thing that you can have in your business is your integrity. People have to see you as wanting to solve issues for them. And if you do that, your business automatically comes. So you get that reputation as a problem solver with high integrity, and people just automatically gravitate towards you. So, Anita, so we're almost...
I hit Scott's major points.
There you go. So finally, just wanted to ask you to wrap this up. Is there any other career advice that you'd like to offer today to young adults?
Well, I think I've been saying most of the career advice throughout this. I think my main ones is being always willing to learn. You know, there's nothing worse than one thing I've learned is me as an employer. And I can always tell my good staff and my bad staff, and even working with factories and others. You know, when we go into a factory, I've said to my staff, one of our core values is we are teachers. I try to teach my staff, and I say, I have never rarely got into a factory where I've been able to pull something off the shelf that a factory is doing and say, we want it exactly like that, and they're going to do it exactly right. We've always had to go in and train and teach. And I think you really, whatever business you do, you've got to really take that attitude that I am a teacher, a trainer, to really be successful. And that's probably some advice that I give people. That's another reason why it goes back to learning, right? Because if you're learning, then you're always learning new things, and being able to train and to teach people, you're always going to have to do that in today's world, especially where the world is moving so fast that you have to constantly be evolving. And that was the one thing that, going back to a book that I read by Thomas Friedman, where he said, when I look at the young people playing video games, I say to them, don't you realize that in your lifetime, you may change your career 20 or 30 times? You may have to reinvent yourself because how fast the world is going to move. And I don't know if it was 20 or 30 times. I might be exaggerating. Sorry, Thomas Friedman, if you happen to be listening to this. But I'm just saying that, you know, you have to realize that you're going to have to constantly reinvent yourself. You're going to change things and learn new things. And you're going to have to be willing to also teach in the process of doing that, because you can't be an island by yourself.
Right. Anita, I want to thank you for the time that you've spent with us today, and we really appreciate you offering career advice to individuals that are interested in a career as an entrepreneur or a business owner. I think that's great, and I know I've learned a lot today. So to wrap up this video, we'd like to remind our viewers that they can either reach out to their own, to seasoned professionals like Anita, to schedule an informational interview, or
Sure.
they can ask for an introduction to that professional from someone that they know. To prepare for informational interviews like what we've done today, we recommend that you watch the video on our website titled Conducting Informational Interviews. Anita, thanks again for your time. It's been awesome. And thanks for, you're in Vietnam, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, but it's great to see you.
Well, thank you so much. This has been fun, Scott. And thank you for all you do for the young professionals and the way you help them. Just as a side note, when I was talking to BYU MS Singapore, of course, a lot of I call seasoned professionals there. And one of them he said, if I had had a mentor, I think I would have been a lot more successful in life. So
that's what we're trying to do.
A lot to be said about that. You know, you don't have to do like us guys. You don't have to do it the old fashioned way where you make your own stupid mistakes. You can learn from someone else.
Thank you, Anita.
Thank you. Thank you.